This is Japan. Coming to you from Toyota City in Aichi Prefecture, Japan on Spreaker.com. You can find me on my Facebook or my Twitter page. Just type in my name, Kyle Dazenbrock. Click on the Spreaker link and have a listen. These days in Japan, it's so hot, it's so humid, it's insane. Now is the rainy season, so in the morning it'll rain, and in the afternoon it'll get really sunny and really hot and really humid. It's just crazy. To kind of put it in perspective for you, I have a friend from Jamaica here. I just talked to him today. I asked him, I said, which is more humid, Japan or Jamaica? And he said it's not even close. Where we live here now in Japan is so much more humid, it's just insane. I thought, wow, that's crazy. That is so crazy. Well, today is a little different. Going to be a little different because I finally get to do a sports take. I think it's the first one I've ever done on this show. And I thought, man, if I could just do this every day for a living, wouldn't that be a nice life? The topic I have for you today is that people are up in arms about Ichiro Suzuki breaking Pete Rose's all-time hits record, quote-unquote, breaking his record. There's an article from the Big League Stew by Chris Cwik. I think that's how you pronounce his name. His last name is Cwik. So, Pete Rose has the all-time hits record for the major leagues with 4,256. Well, where Ichiro has his major, he played about, I think, 7 years in Japan. He has 1,278 hits in Japan and 2,982 hits in the major leagues, and that puts him at a grand total of 4,260. So that puts him past Pete Rose. And a lot of people are not very happy about this. They're saying, "Oh, it's not the same. They're not the same." And here's a quote from Pete Rose. He told USA Today, "It sounds like in Japan they're trying to make me the hit queen, not the hit king. I'm not trying to take anything away from Ichiro. He's had a Hall of Fame career. But the next thing you know, they'll be counting his high school hits." He goes on to say, "I don't think you're going to find anybody with credibility that says that Japanese baseball is equivalent to Major League Baseball. There are too many guys that fail here and then become household names over there." Okay, let's slow down, Pete. I don't think anybody's saying that Ichiro is the all-time hit king, and they're certainly not making you the all-time hit queen. But do I think that Ichiro's hits count in Japan and would, contribute to his all-time total? I do not. But one thing I'm going to do is give you some perspective, which is what I think. I haven't heard anything yet. I don't think any other media outlet is going to give you reasons why they don't count and probably shouldn't count. Let's think of it this way. My mom would often call me when I was a kid. She'd call home and she'd say, "Hey, I bought some of your favorite pop for you." I said, "Oh yeah, Dr. Pepper, all right." So then she comes home and I go and help her get the groceries, and I open the sack and it's not Dr. Pepper, it's Dr. Pibb. Dr. Pibb's okay, it's a really good pop, but it's not quite Dr. Pepper. Or she'd do the same thing with cookies. She'd say, "Hey, I brought some of your favorite cookies." "All right, Oreos, yeah." So I go to open up the packets, and they're not Oreos. They're off-brand dollar store cookies. So okay, they're good, but they're not Oreos. Right? Or if maybe your grandma has made a special pie or something, and someone else tries to make it, and it's good, but it's not the same. See, that's kind of the comparison you can make. Major League Baseball being the Oreos, Japanese professional baseball maybe being the off-brand kind of cookies. They're really good. It's a really good brand of baseball, but it's not quite there. Something's missing. Often I hear that Japanese baseball is it's somewhere between the major league level and the top minor league level. So the top minor league level in America is AAA. So they often say that Japanese baseball would be the equivalent of quadruple A. Okay, and I think there are a ton of cultural differences that kind of caused this, that kind of caused that to happen. So I looked up, I just typed into Google the differences between Japanese professional baseball and Major League, and that's pretty much the title of this article that I have here. And it says that Japanese baseball can be compared to American baseball as it used to be. Japan is 50 years behind. 50 years behind. I believe I touched on that in some other episodes. Japan is kind of, they struggle with change, right? They struggle with change. I even compared Japanese culture to baseball, right? In addition, the strike zone is bigger. The pitchers throw more breaking pitches, which means that the batters have a shorter swing in baseball. So they're not power hitters. They don't hit home runs so much. Players are neither as large or as swift as Americans. In general, the ballparks are smaller, and some infields in Japan are all dirt. This is professional baseball with all dirt infields. The Japanese teams are owned by major companies and are essentially a form of promoting the companies. One example of a Japanese baseball team is the Hanshin Tigers, named after an American team, the Detroit Tigers. The team is owned by Hanshin Electric Railway and is a sentimental favorite in the region. To the U.S. owner, the teams are the top priority. Japan's teams are corporate subsidies, so they're not high on their priority list, which I think is a main reason why in Japan sports are not as big. They put their companies before their teams because, just like it says, the team is a subsidy. It's not as important as the actual company. The players in Japan, they don't demand more money because this would be placing their own wishes above the team's interest. You remember I talked about in previous shows that they kind of work together as a group. Japanese people, they work together as a group to obtain a certain goal, whereas Americans are more individual, right? They're more individual. So in Japan, we have no free agents. They wouldn't go out and seek more money. They wouldn't go out and, try to find a better situation maybe for themselves or for their family for a certain team, because that just puts their own interests above the team, and that's not going to happen here. They instead they're kept in the dark about their salaries, and they like it this way because they don't want to cause any trouble. Okay, now as far as practice goes, they practice for hours each day, have daily meetings and film studies, and they have little bargaining leverage. Some teams can't smoke, drink, or even grow a mustache. But these guys can have a job with the organization for life. So say once they retire, they're guaranteed to have a job, no matter how bad they are about it. They're guaranteed to have a job after they play baseball. So they're set for life, which is good. They have insurance. But let's talk about this. They practice for hours each day and have daily meetings and film sessions. They do this in school as well. Just this week it started. We have what's called a special club time, I guess you could call it, where how can I explain this? They cut the class time down so that they can practice more for their sports to prepare for a tournament. So these kids, they're practicing like 3.5 hours a day, and like I said, this heat is just terrible. I feel so bad for them, but they just got to do it. They have to do it because, they're working together to achieve a goal. They do all of this practicing for hours upon hours a day, and nobody complains because the team loyalty that is seen in Japan would never be seen in the U.S. You see it sometimes, every once in a while, and we think they're great. They're just fantastic, right? Like Derek Jeter for the Yankees played for the same team. Played for the same team for his entire career. Or Tim Duncan, the NBA basketball player. He's played for the same team for his entire career. You don't get that very often, do you? In the States. But here in America, or here in Japan, it's just considered common sense. It's just something you do. In American sports, if you follow sports at all, you hear a lot that, this is this player's contract year, which means his contract with that team is almost up, and he's going to go into free agency once the season is over. And that means he's got to step his game up. He's got to play really well in order for other teams to see him play well, and then they'll probably give him a hefty amount of money. In Japan, like I said, it doesn't happen. They don't change teams. They don't have free agency. So does that contribute to the maybe level of play? Maybe a little bit. I think it certainly does, because what do they have to play for? They're set. They're absolutely set. That's certainly not everything, of course. Like I think American teams, they like to use their time wisely when they practice, whereas Japanese teams, they just practice and practice and practice and practice until they wear themselves down. I think that has a lot to do with it as well. You will see, I don't know if you've seen on the news, it hit really big news a few years ago. This pitcher, he was a high school kid. He was a really promising pitcher. He had Major League scouts looking at him. He threw, in one tournament, this is for high school, he threw 700 pitches. 700 pitches in one tournament. People, they were saying that's abuse. That's absolutely abuse. And these were people in America saying that. They said, you're going to throw his arm out, which is essentially what happened. But, if you ask that pitcher, which they did, are you okay with this? And he said, absolutely, because I'm going to do whatever I can to help my team win. Even if that means throwing my arm out of my socket, which is just incredible. It's absolutely incredible. A really big difference in American baseball and Japanese baseball is the atmosphere. Even if you just watch games on TV, I've been to both Major League stadiums and Japanese stadiums, and they are so different, it's not even funny. The first thing I noticed when I walked into a Japanese baseball stadium, there were cheerleaders. I thought, what the heck is going on? Why are there cheerleaders? And there's a band playing at a baseball game. Thought, this is crazy. It's just insane. And then towards the end of the game, it was a tie game. It ended up going extra innings. It was the bottom of the 12th, and it was still tied. It was still a tie game. So I was just sitting there. Because I expected the 13th inning to come along. Everyone got up and started leaving. I thought, what is going on? And my friend said, Kai, we got to leave. I said, why? The game's still going. They said, no, it's over. They end in a tie. These games end in a tie. Because this has a lot to do with, I've heard it has a lot to do with saving electricity and people, they've got to get home. Most people, they travel by train. And they don't want to miss the last train, so everybody's got to get home. It's a completely different ball game here. It's so different. And I want to touch on the fans. The fans here, like I said, there's a band, there's cheerleaders, it's just wild. The fan support is central to the baseball game here in Japan. It can be compared to the U.S. collegiate cheering scene at football games. The fans sit in the bleacher sections and unreserved outfield bleachers, and the fans are stereotyped to be hysterical groupies with maniacal and monotonous collective